Welcome to Who the Hell Am I? I hope somebody can tell me. This is a refreshingly authentic and unfiltered podcast, at least I think so, where we really delve into the essence of living authentically and rediscovering the simplicity of nourishment and holistic living. My name is Heather. I am a certified holistic health coach, and I love getting to the root of problems, illnesses, mindsets, you name it, because I believe that the answer lies at the root. If we can follow the problem to the root, we will find the answer there as well. Instead of looking out in all these places around us, looking to the media, to celebrities, to icons, to doctors, to gurus. If we're seeking our answers out there, we're missing the message, we're missing the point. The answer lies in our core, at the root. I invite you to join me on a journey of unraveling, if you will, the complexities of modern health and wellness and mindset, where we liberate ourselves from the clutter of trendy diets, perplexing wellness regimes, and mostly all the societal pressures that dictate our lifestyles. In this podcast, I dare you to challenge the shoulds and the have-tos that have long defined conventional notions of health and identity. Let's get started. I am super excited for this conversation. This is the very first episode of a new series that I'm launching called Power Couple Spotlight. And this is in preparation for a very exciting event coming up in September. We are going to be leading a very mini couples retreat. It's called Heart Awakening Couples Retreat, and it's for deeply connected couples who are seeking high-level experiences with wide open hearts. And so I've got some very special guests with us today. A power couple that we are very fortunate to know. And I think that we're going to get to know them a little bit better through this conversation. We've got Roselyn Perez. She is a self-awareness and success coach with her business Insightful Essence. And Roselyn is also a licensed clinical social worker with over 10 years of experience. She's here with her husband, Joey Olmeda. Did I say that right? I feel like I just pictured it.
You said it perfectly.
Okay.
All right.
And Joey is a senior manager of operations for a medical equipment company. From what I know of the two of you and your relationship, you guys have been together for a pretty long time, right?
It's 22 years.
Yeah, 22 years. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. I am so excited to have you guys and my partner, Bruce.
Hi.
Hey,
Thank you for having us.
And the way that Roselyn and I got connected a few years ago was through a networking event. And we were actually invited to co-host a virtual session, workshop, if you will, on mental health. Is that what it was, Roselyn? I think it was like mental health.
You're pretty close. I think it was like a mental health panel or something.
Yes.
Like that. Yes.
Accurate. And I remember it was our mutual friend, Janelle, who connected us. And I actually messaged her just a couple of days ago. And I was like, thank you so much for connecting me to Roselyn a couple of years ago. She's now helping me with my wellness retreats. And actually, Janelle and her wife are going to be on the podcast too. So
They're amazing.
they're so amazing. So it's interesting how connections happen. But for those who are listening, when I was putting together my wellness retreats, and I was thinking, who do I want to be on this team? Who do I feel aligned with? Because that's what it is for me. If energies align, then I feel that everything else will fall into place if you get the right energies contributing. And I immediately reached out to Roselyn and asked her if she would believe in my vision, first of all, and second, be willing to contribute her expertise in upcoming retreats. And thankfully, she said yes. And so here she is today. She's going to actually be leading a communication workshop at the couples retreat in September. And she's going to be doing a very condensed version. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the session today. But I kind of want to start off with a little bit of you guys' background, like going back to when you guys first got together and then where you are today. What do you feel like has been one or two of the key moments that have kind of been a part of your transformation as a couple?
Good question.
Key moments is when you get to the point where, at least for me, learning how to communicate.
Yeah.
At least on my end, I had to improve my skills, and it's very easy to go into these passive aggressive moments and just shout out comments instead of just having the time to sit down and having a direct conversation with the person that you love.
Mm-hmm.
And at least that when I hit that pivot and I learned how to communicate with her better, our relationship just, went into another level.
Yeah.
No.
Communication's key.
She said two.
Go ahead.
It's your turn. No, you're second.
I agree with 100% with what Joey's saying. That communication is just pivotal, and communication is way beyond what people think. They automatically think of words, and I don't want to get too much into details because I know that we're going to be talking about communication a little bit more in relation to the retreat. But in addition to communication is having an open heart to always see your partner through change, because we've evolved. Like when we first met, I was 19, he was 23. I assure you, we are not the same person. We are not the same person at all. And throughout those phases and changes in our lives is how we have been able to move through that, understanding that we're not the same person yet. We still like the love. It's unconditional beyond the person that we thought we got married to right in the beginning.
Yeah. And I feel like with what you guys are talking about, especially in those long relationships, right? You're past the few year mark. You've had milestone upon milestone happen in your relationship, and I feel like you've probably been through what all couples who last for a longer period of time. I feel like when that growth is happening, there's always a chance of one person outgrowing the other or one not coming along with the other. I would love to hear from all three of you guys. I would love to hear your take on, has that ever happened in your relationship? And if so, how did you navigate it? And to be where you are now as a power couple, because I believe that a power couple is someone who you're not a power couple because you're devoid of those hard situations.
Right.
I believe what makes you a power couple is navigating it together, the hard, mucky parts just as much as the bright, shiny parts. So how have you guys navigated those kinds of situations, and how have they contributed to who you are as a couple today? And this is for all three of you.
Well, I'll go ahead and start. For me, I've been in relationships where I was doing the work on myself, which is, not necessarily the norm, I would say. Men don't usually think that they have any work to do on themselves because they're just being guys, and guys is just being, machismo, if you will, sometimes. But I was doing work on myself, and I was in a relationship where the girl, noticed that I was doing this work on myself. And so she started to do the same things I was doing. And, I didn't really understand. I was just like, oh, this is great. She's doing the work too. So I was like, okay, this is good. This is a good thing. But what I didn't realize is that she was just doing the work because she didn't want to lose me, because she saw that I was growing so much and she didn't want to get left behind. So she was doing the same things I was doing from a place of like scarcity and lack, of like fear, of like don't outgrow me and leave me in the dust, so to speak, which is, I was never going to be like leave her in the dust, but it's true when one person starts to grow in their own personal development, if the other person isn't having their own personal growth and their own personal development, it can feel like there's this, grabbing hold of the coattails, trying to like hang on and like don't grow too fast without me, right? And so I found myself waiting, kind of like, okay, let me show you what I'm learning. And it turned into this like me showing her what to do. And then unbeknownst to me, I started to get this like feeling of like, I need to guide you. I need to be your coach. I need to be, and it didn't work, because then not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, I think she started to resent me a little bit. And I think I started to feel like, I need to guide you. She was younger than me. So like, there's that aspect. So now fast forward to the relationship that I'm in now. It's been so beautiful. I tell her all the time that she inspires me because I know I'm doing the work on myself, but I'm inspired by the work that she's doing personally with herself. And there's multiple times where things that she's working on inspire me in a way that like brings the work that I'm doing on myself to the next level as well. So I think it's pivotal that each person has their own way of doing their personal work for themselves and not doing it for the other person and not doing it so that the other person doesn't outgrow them, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think?
Response.
I would say that one of the pillars or points in our lives that I feel that we did really good as a couple was when we were in a really bad financial state in Puerto Rico. That, as you mentioned earlier, right, the machismo, the provider, right? At one point, I felt I wasn't providing to my family, and I struggled with how that made me feel, and to have her by my side and holding my hand and telling me like, hey, we can live under a bridge right now. All we need is each other, right? That's it. That was a huge moment for me, and that was what, like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And navigating that moment and understanding that, at the end of the day, machismo, it's in, and it's identifying self-awareness. Where does this come from? And back in the 80s, that's what you're fed right through everything, and how your parents were raised, what you saw on TV, what you saw in movies, what was promoted all the time. So that was one of the struggles, but humbling yourself and understanding that really the most important is to have each other's back in the most difficult times definitely helped us navigate those difficult financial moments.
Yeah. Wow, what a beautiful story. If you were to have a similar experience, let's just say, I don't know how many years ago that was that you had that experience, but with the amount of growth and life that has happened from there to here, let's say you were to have a similar experience, similar conversation now, do you think it would impact you the same way, or do you feel like you guys are in a different place now where the conversation would be different or the experience would be different? Like, do you think you would still, with the growth that you've had, do you think you would still have those feelings of I'm not doing enough, I'm not providing enough? Or do you think, I don't know, like, do you think it would be the same, or?
It lingers. It still lingers, right? But it's different when you have a safety net, right? When at the end of the day, the person that I'm trying to and impress and make her feel safe, like don't worry about it, like I got it. That's how I feel that in those moments, that's what's really important, right? In a marriage. And I say this because it's gonna happen, right? You're gonna have your highs, you're gonna have your lows, and in those moments, it's very easy, and based on past relationships, right? Bruce mentioned it earlier, and I remember being in a relationship where financially, if I wasn't doing good, it was a problem. right? It was a guilt trip. It was like, hey, what are you doing, right? So I had to go through that moment to then see this other side of, wow, like that's huge, right? That's a relief.
I got you. We got this.
Yeah, every
Mhm.
there's their highs and lows, and
Yeah, and I agree with that because that'll trigger that aspect of the machismo or the man that needs to provide. That if you're in a relationship where the person is making you feel like you're not doing enough, that's just going to trigger even more of all of those feelings of like, I now need to be doing something, which to me is inauthentic. To think that you have to be the full provider, right? I think that's societal programming.
today's day and age, like she's very successful at what she does, right? There's no need to go into that mode, and it's definitely a new era.
And I would like to add to that machismo thinking and societal construct, because on my end, knowledge was something that I needed to be extremely aware of. Because in the culture that we come from, this is like so embedded into our core beliefs that men has a very particular roles, women have particular roles. And as a woman, I wasn't so far away from that machismo, but on the other extreme, because I was a caregiver. I needed to take care in an emotional level. And studying my profession, being a counselor, exacerbated that in my mind, and it made me feel many times that I was outgrowing him. But in reality, I was so unfair because I was coming from a place of the savior complex, and that not only with him, but with my daughters, with my family members. At some point, I was like giving unsolicited advice and wanting to fix everyone, but it was coming from that place because it made me feel superior. It made me feel worth. I was getting my worth from that. And in reality, as couples, you want to watch out for that because you may be thinking that you may be outgrowing your partner, but my question is like, how really is that coming from unconditional love? What is it that you're getting in exchange from that? And when I saw that, because sometimes he's like, I would talk to him as if it was my patient. You know how frustrating that must have been for him? My daughter would say the same thing. I remember once my daughter saying, Mom, don't you listen how condescending you sound? And I'm like, I'm just trying to help. No, not at all. So I needed those listening. I'm like, I am his wife. I'm not the counselor. I am a human. I learned how to be vulnerable, and I learned to accept him unconditionally, because in reality where that was coming from is that I wasn't accepting me unconditionally. So when I started to do that with him, I also reaped the benefit that when I make mistakes, or whenever I didn't know something, or whenever I needed to just to admit to something that I did wrong, I was more graceful with myself. So therefore I became more graceful with him, more graceful. And all of that has a lot to do with those rooted beliefs that we grew up.
Yeah.
It's continuous improvement too. We don't have all the tips and tricks.
Never stops.
We're not experts in love. We have our daily lessons, and we also have our daily struggles.
Yeah.
And adventures and fun.
And fun. So that's
fun.
so if you focus on the negative, right, and you tend to stay in those moments, then there's very little room for growth or opportunity to learn, right? So wake up just with an open mind and willing to understand. Understand is very important versus who's right or wrong. Matthew McConaughey has a perfect example in his book.
Green light.
Green lights, green lights. There you go.
Unpaid promotion, but
that was a huge explaining, communicating, hoping that people understand me as well.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So this wasn't a question that I was initially going to even ask.
In the moment.
Go for it, girl.
But I think that we have a pretty special group right here, the four of us. So we've got the two of you and we've got the two of us. And so Joey, I don't know you as well as I know Roselyn, but what I know, Roselyn and I are very aligned in we are both visionaries and we both are big thinkers and big doers. We talked a little bit about this last week when we met to discuss some of the things for the upcoming retreat. And we were talking about how like we're impatient and it's like always feeling the need to make big action and do big things. And it can feel frustrating. And now this is me speaking for myself. I can't speak for you, but it can feel frustrating, or just if we feel like other people who are being more patient and more in flow, such as my wonderful partner, he's just more of the steady, grounded, like go with it and take action, but doesn't need to be so big. So I'm curious, first of all, if your dynamic in your relationship is similar to that, and if so, like how, from the guys, like how does it feel to be the partner of a visionary who is always trying to take big action, and is it ever frustrating?
I want to hear what Bruce had to say. He took a deep breath. He like leaned back. So I'm really curious now what was going through.
I'm ready too, Bruce. I'm ready.
I mean, this is where it comes back to being inspired, because you do have beautiful vision and you are always going after the steps that it takes. Even if you're not aware of it in the moment, you're always taking the next step. Just like this whole beautiful retreat, how it came to be was because she was just going out there and meeting people in the community and listening to them and, understanding what it is that people want. And she was doing retreats herself and realizing, like, she started to realize that there really wasn't this curated feeling in, really nice luxury kind of retreats. And I watched this vision start to grow, right? And then the frustration came that it wasn't growing fast enough. And then the comparisons came that why did they have this seemingly success? Because, we can put stuff on social media and it makes us look really successful. And yet our bank account and the bills and the stress may not be, put out there in front of everybody else, right? So I would see her making these comparisons, and that's where it's hard, because as the man, I want to support and nurture and, care for her, but I also don't want to coach her. I don't want to be like, oh, why are you doing that? Because this is what that means, And so it's a balance, a juggling act, because the way that I've approached it is I've just said, this is what I'm struggling with right now in my own personal life. And this is how I'm dealing with it. This is how I'm struggling with comparing myself to others. And I have to tell myself that, they're in a different ballpark, if you will. They're teaching something different, or they've had different opportunities. And so that helps me to not compare myself to them, but to and we've talked about this before, but to look at them as expanders, right? Someone who's already achieved what it is that I'm working towards. And so that's inspiring to me, And maybe because I do have a very strong, what I call my morning mastery routine practice with meditation and breath work and visualization, all these kinds of things, maybe because I do focus on that kind of stuff daily, it is easier for me to return to that and, keep this, what she described as kind of like even keel. But that kind of just goes back to the hermetics of the pendulum, right? You're going to swing one direction here, but you're always going to swing back the other direction. And if you understand that, you can let yourself swing to the highs and enjoy them and celebrate them, and let yourself swing to the lows, but know that it's coming right back, right? And so I think that's how I'm able to kind of maintain my even keel. But whenever I'm trying to support you, I'm doing it from a place of, I love you. I see what you're doing. I see the growth. And I know the frustration is because you just have such a beautiful, lofty vision that, as Matthew McConaughey, taking it back to him, as he says, your vision, you're never going to attain because as you get closer to that vision, you are always expanding, and your vision is now, as Matthew McConaughey would say, is another 10 years out from now. So that vision's never going to be realized. And it's a beautiful thing to watch you continue to expand and expand and expand and expand. You don't feel that because you got this vision that you're chasing, right? But that's what I see.
So what a coincidence. Yesterday when I got from work and we're getting ready, we had a couple of friends come over for dinner, and as we're getting ready and cleaning the kitchen, we always talk about her day and the things that she did for her business. And I remember her going through the same moments, frustration, return on investment, right? Like when am I going to see my return on investment? And I remember sitting down with her and being, so I'm high on woo. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that concept, so, but that's one of my top 5 strengths is woo. So I'm always going to be on a positive and try to influence people to be positive as well. Sometimes it'd be a little too much, right? But
Therefore,
yes,
that's why you're a manager.
being able to just listen to her frustrations and be there for her in those moments and not try to add anything to what she's saying, not trying to remove her out of that moment as well. Just what I do is I remind her that she's doing what she loves, right? And the biggest return on investment for me is seeing her happy.
Yep.
Because she's doing what she loves, right? And there is the comparison. There have been moments where she compared herself to people that are doing the exact same thing that she's doing and are very successful, and they are the pioneers. They're leading the way. You should see them as an example of they got it. They achieved their dream. I can be there. I can be there, right? I just have to, this is for everything, right? If it were easy, anybody would be anything success, whether it's a gym goal that you have or it's a successful goal. If it were easy, anybody would do it, right? Everybody would be super successful at building their own business, and then there wouldn't be a balance, right? So just reminding her that, hey, you just have to be patient and enjoy the ride. It's important that you enjoy every moment because that's what it's all about.
That's
And open to feedback. She's always open to feedback as well. And I really, really appreciate that about her.
well, and it's pretty special when the person that you're with in partnership, in relationship, is able to provide you with valuable feedback. Because I think that there are some relationships that don't have that component of depth, right? So that's one thing I think about a lot with us is the depth of conversation that we're able to have, the depth of feedback we're able to give each other, and the way that we're each open to receiving that from each other, and you guys probably as well, it sounds like. But that adds an element of beauty to a relationship that you don't realize is missing when you're in all the relationships before where you don't have it until you get in that relationship where you finally have that depth, and that comes from the work, right? That comes from the growth that you do individually and then continue to do together. But I love that you mentioned that, Joey, that aspect of feedback. And I know there's times when I like to think that I'm pretty open to feedback from you, but I know there's times when the rebel in me is like, no.
You and I are so connected because as I hear you saying that, and I heard Bruce and I heard Joey, I had to also take ownership of the part that I had to learn how to receive. Because for many years, he wouldn't like know the true self. Like he wouldn't know me like truly deeply because I would just like keep to myself. And when I started to be more vulnerable, wow, our relationship, just because he was so there for me. He was always, and I'm like, before it was feel so awkward for me. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the attachment styles, but just in summary, right? There are the anxious attachment, there are the avoidance, the secure. For me, I inclined a little more into the avoidant, which means that they portray this persona of being independent, strong, I don't need you. And guess what? It was just disrupting our relationship so much because at the bottom, it was that fear for intimacy. And it's so sweet that he's bringing the feedback because it's a work that I had to do for myself. But it wasn't always that way in the beginnings of our relationship. And that has shifted and helped our relationship so much. And that's also part of the communication, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was going to say communication is absolutely key. And like she just said, you don't know you're missing it until you actually experience it, right? That was one of the first things that we did, like very early on when we were dating, is we started having really hard conversations that were kind of like, we might not continue down this road, but let's have this conversation and see if we can come to, some kind of understanding about it. And going back to that attachment style, I was kind of like the anxious avoidant. So if I was in some sort of situation where I was feeling needy, I was very anxious about what was going to happen with the relationship. If I was in a place where like I didn't want to be needed, I didn't want to be counted on, then I was very avoidant. I was very, not non-committal. And there were things in my life that I had built around me that allowed me to stay in that sort of attachment style. And we just started having some hard conversations. And really, thank you for not being judgmental and allowing me to be who I was in that moment, because I've been able to grow away from that, who that man was. Didn't really realize that I didn't want to be. I just had this attachment style that had me in this, again, anxious, avoidant place because I hadn't had this before. If I had had this, I probably wouldn't have had that same kind of anxious attachment style. So when I finally had this, I even sent her this little song that I wrote. I can't remember how it goes, but it's something to the effect of like, when it's been wrong for so long and then you finally find the one, and it's like, I go back to Matthew McConaughey. So because it's just, that was a joke, inside joke that we had. But that's really what I got to experience, is being able to communicate on such a level that I was so hungry for, that, like she said, we've had the hard conversations, we've had the deep conversations. When you're talking about, celebrating, the good things that are going on, we've now almost made it like a ritual. Like something good happens, we go out and celebrate. It doesn't have to be a real expensive dinner, but we go somewhere and we treat ourselves and we have a glass of wine, and that cheers is always like, congratulations, well done. This is what I see in you. What's next?
And it's the same when we're setting goals. So I'm curious what you guys do, how you work together as a couple in setting your next goals. Like, so you achieve, and then like for us, our celebration is similar to how we celebrate as we are setting the next goals. Like we tend to have those conversations around, the times that you would expect, but also on the in-between times. Like we do it around New Year's every year. What are your goals for the year? How can I support you in reaching those? And then we do it again, throughout the year at, just various times. How do you guys, because I think goal setting together, understanding each person's individual goals and then having your goals as a couple is vital to that continued growth that we were talking about. How do you guys incorporate goal setting and celebrations into your relationship?
I love it. That question is so fun. As I heard you formulating that question, I took myself into kind of like a time, back in time. And please share with me your impression. But I feel that we've always incorporated from the moment that we started dating when I was 19, when he was 23. That has been one of the things that always been present. We always, even we don't have to sit down and like formulate formal goals. No, like in conversations, we would always include topics about the things that we want in the future. And that future will always involve us together. Since the moment that we started dating, we would talk about like, so what are your plans and what do you want to do at first, of course, like what do you want to do for New Year's, right? Because we were dating, but that's kind of like short goals, but it involved us together. So we've always incorporated that. And of course, we've also sat down and create a spreadsheet for financial goals and vacations and all those things. So we've done it in different ways, but it has for sure been always that it's been present in our relationship since the moment that we started until today.
Manifestation. That's so true. You don't even have to believe in it. Just say it. Yeah. It's so true, right? And it doesn't even make sense, right? Because I'm saying, well, you don't have to believe in it, but say it. Just try it out.
Yeah.
Say something out loud. On your daily conversations, we have a ritual. We get home from work, hey, how was your day, right? And then from one thing you go to another. So today I'm talking about how my day went, but in that same conversation, we're talking about where we're going to be in a week from now. What are we going to do tomorrow, right? And one thing leads to another. And then in a month, right, all of a sudden we're hitting each other up. Hey, I just got this bonus at work. We weren't even expecting it. And since day one, like she said, since we met, something that we do have in common is that we've been very hard workers. I've always been a hard worker since I was young. I've been working since I was 14 or 15, right? I started working in little bodegas in Puerto Rico. And when I met her, she was working at a hotel, Hilton, in San Juan, and she was a receptionist. And she was so young. She was 19. And she had money saved up, and I didn't have nothing. So that to me was impressive. I had a good job, and I always made sure that I'd have enough for me because, well, we were dating, right? I'm sustaining myself, but always with the mindset that, you wake up every morning and you give 100% of whatever that you're doing, right? Whatever you're invested in. And that has led us to where we're at today.
We forgot also to answer the fun part, like for celebrations, that we've made it. At first, there was a portion of and we always actually have fun, but of course, with children, you have to adapt that fun around PG and PG-13, depending on their ages, but fun. But we've always been like, we have our date nights. We go on date nights on a weekly basis. And if not, then we still spend if with the budget, we're washing for it, then we like stay at home, but we spend some time together. We do celebrate things. We highlight all of our progress. We go at night and at night we just like spend some time together watching something or talking. So we have fun. We're always playful. Even when we get upset, this is something that has helped us to leave all the resentment or the anger behind after having a discussion. Like after a couple of minutes, he will look at me and would just like stick his tongue out, like, or I would just like go next to him, like push him, and then like automatically it's just really hard to stay mad or upset. And those are things that we do. We incorporate the fun even in moments where we are upset.
Then we go back and think about what we were arguing about and realize it was so stupid. Like that. Just try it. Like if you're in a car, you get into a small argument, right? You're not agreeing at the moment. Things get heated, right? You can tell that there's tension in the car, and you have these awkward like 2 or 3 minutes where nobody's talking to each other, right? And then just randomly come out and say, damn, look at those rims on my car. Isn't that nice? And then she looks, and then all of a sudden, just try it, right? Just try it and see. Start talking like nothing just happened. And the other day, we were in the car and we started laughing. It's like, that's another growth, right? Letting everything go, right? You're not going to agree all the time. It's unrealistic. We're not going to be perfect, right? There's no such thing as a perfect relationship.
And that's beautiful. Actually, that is, I love it, right? I see it as an opportunity. Okay. Before we were caught up on the blame game. That's when things get nasty. But lately, more recently, we've taken on responsibility. And I've tried it. I'm like, okay, so my part, and I felt that I perceived it this way, and he does the same thing, and it's a completely different game. And it feels like lighter. So we always try to just do, instead of like blaming, we take responsibility in that end.
assumptions, right? Not
Yeah.
jumping to conclusions. I do that a lot. Oh my God, I build a movie, an Oscar-winning movie in my head.
You're the star.
So that what's my
That GIF that goes like this, and she falls in the stairs, and it's like it wasn't even about, you know.
I'm like, I would love to make a movie out of like what you're creating up there, including me with I don't even know what my role is in, but we just like laugh. We say things like that.
But I think that part of that too is like we laugh at it in this conversation. It's funny, but you reach a certain comfort level with that person to where you are your authentic self all the time. But let's be real, being your authentic self is not always pretty, right? And I'm not talking about being ridiculous or like yelling or angry or mean or anything like that, but reaching that level where your authentic self might be feeling pretty dramatic right now, or might be feeling upset or hurt or any range of emotions. And also, triggers from, past wounds that have not been healed or whatever. But the ability to be that vulnerable and safe with the person that you love and trusting that they can hold space for you as that version of yourself. They can hold space for everything you're feeling, everything that might be triggering you right now. And so even that part of a relationship that isn't the prettiest part, but it's the part of the realest part, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yesterday, you're saying that, and yesterday he always checked on me, and he asked me whether if I was okay, and I was like overwhelmed. I was like going, and automatically I said like, yeah, babe, I'm okay, and he's like, okay, but I'm like, I had to like reflect back and wait, hold on, why am I saying that I'm okay if I'm not okay? And I told him, you know what? I just said that I was okay, but I'm not. And he's so sweet because he always wants to take care of me. So as soon as I said that, he tried to talk, and I'm like, babe, that's okay. I just like need this time. It's okay for me to be this way, and I appreciate it. Like, okay, so you need some space. I'm like, yes, I need some space, and he gave me the space, right? So it's also daring to ask what you need, because sometimes he may not know, and he feels that what I need is his support and to be there for me. But sometimes, and it's not that I'm claiming that I'm still an avoidant, but sometimes I feel that I have to reflect and get my alone time first, just to kind of like fall into. But acknowledging first that, and saying and admitting and being authentic and saying, you know what, no, I'm not okay. Just give me some space. And and when he gave me that space, I'm not kidding you, like a couple of minutes after, I'm like, I feel so much better. And he's like, okay, good to hear that.
You guys were talking about the attachment styles earlier, right? And I think insecure.
You're anxious, just like
Yeah, anxious, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, anxious.
it was so difficult for me back in the day not take that personal, not her not wanting to talk to me, and then I would make it about myself. So we had a lot of problems when it came to that, right? Because then she, I would start a fight, right? Because now it's about me. It's not even about like, you got to talk to me. Like, I don't understand what you're going through. Why you got to have an attitude now? Now she has an attitude because I just started, and you mentioned it earlier, Bruce, when you mentioned about not being judgmental and that making you get to that comfort zone and where you feel you can be vulnerable and just share whatever you want to share, and being able to accept the person that's beside you for who they truly are, right? Those are very instrumental in building a strong relationship. Recently, I heard, as I was listening to 80s and 90s R&B, and I swear I didn't. I know the words to the song, but I don't know the song. I can't say it now.
You pay attention.
And
to
at the end, I didn't. And at the end of the song, there's these person having a conversation at the end of the song, and I never realized that song had that conversation. And you guys might know the song, but at the end of the song, there's a lady talking about, or a girl talking about, love, right? What is true love? And she's like, hey, you can love anybody, right? But a person that you truly love and you say I love you to is because you really, that's a different type of love, because you're loving that person for who they are, and you accept them with their attributes and their defaults.
Yeah. All this is making me really think about, to me, what is really powerful about power couples is that you are in that relationship to be triggered, because that's showing you the wounds that have not been healed yet. And being triggered by the other person is giving you an opportunity to take responsibility for what I'm feeling inside based off of my own triggers. And I'm just going to open this up a little bit, because this is my struggle, is there will be times when I hear a certain tone that triggers the way maybe a stepmom spoke to me, or, a military man, or, there's certain heightened tones that trigger me. And I'm very quick to let the person know that you don't speak to me like that. Right. And that's still, and I'm just going to be honest about, that's still a struggle that we have, is when I hear a certain tone, I'll try to nip it in the bud, because I have a feeling that it's going somewhere where I don't want it to go. Just a little bit of personal information, from being in the military. They say I have PTSD. It's not from being in the military. It's from my life before the military. He was just exacerbated in the military. And in the military, it became enraged. Like, I have anger management issues. I have a hard time controlling my anger. Let me say. So when I hear certain tones, I know that what it's triggering is those parts of myself that in the past would get very angry and shut down. But, through my time in the military and being triggered so much, I no longer shut it down, and it blew up and I became enraged. So being aware of that now, like I try to shut it down right away. I'm still, like I said, I'm still struggling with the way that I can communicate in a way that is not going to shut down her authenticity, because I need that authenticity to continue to show me my triggers, my unhealed parts of myself. But when it does happen, and I do kind of nip it in the bud, and then she's, feels like I'm not allowing her to be her authentic self, I do have that moment where I say, okay, I need to explain what just happened to me. And I try to explain it from a place of, this is what's happening to me. And I try to take all the responsibility off of her and onto me. And usually when the conversation goes there, and even if it's a reverse, like I did something that triggered her, and I there was no intention of me to trigger her at all. When one person comes to the conversation in that way, saying, this is what happened to me, I was triggered, and you take full responsibility for your own emotional reactions, the other person, like, almost naturally is like, okay, I didn't realize that this particular thing, is triggering for you. And it doesn't mean they have to be disingenuous or not authentically themselves, but they can just be, more, maybe sensitive to the fact that, there is a trigger there. I don't know. Maybe you can explain more of like what that's like when I'm communicating that way with you.
Well, to what you were saying, like when you were talking about the tone of voice specifically, or certain tones that trigger you, it's funny because then when that can also initiate a trigger in me, your response, right? The way that you respond to that, where it's like, whatever your response is, can trigger me from past experiences where I wasn't allowed to speak. My voice was silenced. And so for me, that's my biggest trigger is, no one will ever silence me again, right? you will not take away my voice.
I feel you.
So those inner wounds come up together at the same time.
But the beautiful thing is we can talk about it here because we talk about it then. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that we've mastered it or it's perfected. It's just, this is the realness of being that ever-growing couple. Mm-hmm. You don't stay stuck there.
But I guess that's why I'm bringing it up now, is because I want you to know that in the moment I don't have this clarity, whereas now I do have the clarity that I need that from you to continue to show me where have unresolved things that cause me to be triggered. So maybe in the moment I'm acting like I'm triggered, don't do that, but I can look at it with clarity now and say, no, do that, because that's why we're power couple, because you go into these powerful relationships so that you can heal those parts of yourself that you've never been able to heal in other relationships. The more that you can be your authentic self, the more that's going to trigger those parts of me that need to be healed. So.
Yeah.
I love this conversation so much because it's something that mostly everyone experiences, yet you don't hear that much conversation about. And sometimes whenever you go through these moments, because everything that you guys are saying, I'm going to speak for myself, but I feel like, yeah, exactly. We've gone through those too.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's through that connection that you feel, okay, so it's not only us, right? And that removes so much weight from your shoulder that like other people go through this stuff too.
So with your expertise in communication, Roselyn, and the workshop that you teach, which I know is lengthy. It's like the full thing is like 2 hours, 2.5 hours?
The full thing is 12 hours. So I'm going to really, really provide so much valuable information because we're gonna compress it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But typically the work that I do with my clients, it requires at least 12 hours of this type of, because there are 12 modules that I cover with them. Yes.
In that workshop, the 12-hour communication workshop that you take couples through, is there components that touch on what we're talking about here, like the triggers, the wounds, like, is that a part of that? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the components is to talk about that, and this is a little more technical. You guys don't have to, for the listeners, it's bypass the word, but there's this part in the brain that it's called the amygdala, which is the alarm system for threats. And that part of your brain does not know the difference between a lion running towards you to kill you versus having a flat tire. Threat is a threat. Your conscious knows that I'm not going to die out of a flat tire, but your subconscious doesn't. And therefore, as just to answer your question, learning how to self-soothe, it's also part of communicating. Learning how to regulate your nervous system through breathing, through breath work, such as the one that Bob does, is extremely important because many times, guess what? All of those constructs that shaped you to who you think you are came from childhood, and during childhood, we are surviving. Your body is constantly assessing the environment for survival and builds core beliefs that you carry into adulthood. And for example, if you're something so simple, all of that to say, if you're, which would happen to me, we will have a mess in our homes. And then if a mom came, we're just like, Mom is here, we have to just to clean everything up. And we'll feel just like nervous because she would start yelling and screaming, look at this mess in the house. Guess what? As a child, your mom is your sort of survival because she provides you with a safe space. She provides you with food. So as an adult, that can simply be triggering for you if you see your partner, if you see someone like yelling for you at something. It could be about like that or something else. And we rationalize as adults. So there's so much to it, to communication. So it's not only just like talking and just like finding the right words. It's also this part that helps you identify, wait, I'm being triggered, taking responsibility. And it's only our responsibility to communicate it to our partners. Because typically one example that I use with my clients is, how would you know if you're traveling from Florida to Georgia that you're no longer in Florida? I'm talking about Florida because it's the state that we are. So you would know that because there's a sign. You may have an idea if you don't see a sign, but if you don't see the sign, then you won't be sure. So we are the ones that have to put up that sign up. Hey, I'm no longer in Florida, right? So this is happening to me. because therefore it makes it a little more difficult and unjust to your partner to know what's happening with you if you don't communicate that. That was a big thing for me. A lot of times I had, like, he was talking about his movies. I also had my movies. I also had my own conversations that I would say things about myself. And now we're getting like very good at sharing those communications and those conversations in our head. But going back to that, yes, absolutely. We have to regulate, we have to increase our awareness, learn how to self-soothe, find the right words. And this is an art. It's something that we don't grow up knowing, but guess what? We can learn and we can get better.
And there's always room for improvement. Like, it's just, I think it's one of those areas where there's always opportunity for continued growth, you know, in the self-soothing, in the communication around your wounds and triggers, and, you know, how do we move forward from this? Like, it's just one of those, I think if you're not talking about those things as a couple and you're not working through them as a couple, you're doing each other a disservice. They're going to pile up. Is that what that was? Piling up.
I've seen that in the past.
I love that nonverbal communication between you, because I had no idea. I'm like, I saw him like, it probably means something, but Heather was like, I got you. This is what you mean, right?
I was getting
That was telepathic communication there.
that was perfect.
That's funny. So for listeners who maybe haven't gathered the full context of everything, at the couples retreat in September that we're doing, Roselyn will be leading a very condensed version of this communication workshop that she's talking about here. That's normally 12 hours. She'll be leading when we do weekend couples retreats. So when a couple reaches out, or a few couples reach out and they want to host a retreat together, she'll be doing a much longer version of that communication workshop. And then it's something that she does with her clients as well, the full 12-hour piece. Just so you know, there's ways to get more of this information, more of what we're talking about. So if you want just to dip your toe in and you want the 30-minute version, and you're in or near St. Augustine, Florida, the 29th of September, we'll be doing that couples retreat. And it's at a really spectacular location, very healing environment that I won't go into right now because that's a whole other conversation, but you can. I'll have the link for the September retreat in the show notes of this podcast. And you can go there, and there actually is more information through the links there to learn about the location, the NRA, which is formerly the Essential Energy Spa. So I have information about that through the retreat links. That's one way that you can experience some of what Roselyn teaches around communication. And then there's also the option of booking a weekend retreat where you get much more. The event on the 29th of September is really, it's a 3-hour event. So it's pretty condensed, but it's giving a taste of what a whole weekend experience would be. So we're going to have a few members of my retreat team there. Bruce will be leading breathwork. I'll be leading a shadow ownership workshop. One of our other team members is going to be doing a workshop called The Beauty in Us. We're going to do a cacao ceremony, which is heart opening. That's going to be how we start the whole thing. It's going to be a really special time and a really amazing healing space. So definitely, if you're in the area or can be here around that time, just check out the show notes for this episode, and there will be a link there that you can sign up. Also, I'll have Roselyn's links for her business. And you want to tell us a little bit about your business, Roselyn? Just, you know, the work that you do in general with your clients?
Absolutely. I do very profound work. I've noticed that sometimes, depending on the approach in therapy, it could take longer for some to heal through their process. I dive straight to the subconscious, because most of everything is there. That's where it comes from. And it's never about me telling them what they need or what their life is missing. It's pretty much building a pathway for people find their own core beliefs, your own path, what's missing, and finding their authenticity. I genuinely believe that that's the way people can heal. And I have a program where I've created some steps that facilitates clients accessing that. I'm very direct. It's a very it's a program that it will require for you to have your open heart to go through that, because there's a lot of healing. And if you're not ready, that's perfectly fine. Yet if you are ready to change unhealthy patterns in your life, then absolutely connect with me. And I do want to add, just because I'm a fact person, I love knowledge and science. And I know that we live in a society that they look so much for reviews of experiences, of things. So in life, I would say that elderly people, they are at their reviews, right? They have all the information because they have gone through everything. And research shows over and over and over and over that the most thing that they regret is not spending as much time in the things that most matter, such as relationships. Sometimes we focus so much in our jobs, we focus on getting our houses, things, but at the end, what most matters is relationship. And the time is always now. You never know, right? What it's the movie that your partner's creating if you don't communicate the way that we are, because even communicated the way that we've been doing in this conversation, there's still so much to uncover, right? Because it is the moment that we're triggered that we get an opportunity to uncover something new and bring in our partner to be part of that world. So if you're not communicating this way, guess what? You never know the movie that your partner has created in their lives. And that's where you see many people being completely surprised with decisions that, you know what, I no longer want to be in this relationship. I don't think that we can ever connect back again. So the time is always now. And this is an amazing thing that you're creating, Heather. And I didn't want to only talk about my business. I wanted to also promote and really, because I genuinely believe in your mission and the value that people can get. I have experienced loneliness in my own world, and I have experienced connection by doing these techniques with my partner. And he knows I love him to death. And we're just having the best time in our relationship. Sometimes even when we're just like are annoyed with each other, I can still feel that I love him so much, right? I can be upset and I can still have that lingering thought, like underlying thought that
Have fun. Talk
Yeah.
about the good moments,
yes.
right? Celebrate
Yeah.
memories. You don't have to only celebrate goals.
Yeah.
You can celebrate
Mhm.
memories too.
I
And
love
good
that.
times.
So I wanted to share that.
No, that's beautiful. Thank you. So one last question I have for you guys, and that is, what is a future goal or a goal that you guys are currently working towards together as a couple?
Go ahead.
Wow. That's a great question. I've recently been in my latest trip is my goal is to enjoy life at its max and have fun. Like I just mentioned, you can spend your whole life preparing this beautiful garden. Take time to smell the flowers, right? You can focus on so many things that takes in building this garden, and you can lose focus on what's really important. That in the blink of an eye, you're 80 years old and like, oh my God, I have this beautiful garden, but I never took time to actually value the purpose of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
that's my goal right now. Just enjoying life and taking a day at a time and trying to remove anxiety and control my anger. I have the same struggles, right? Ego, machismo, call it what it is, right? It's a now you understand sometimes when you see elderly people, with such wisdom and such peace, and you feel their energy is just so calm. It's like, dude, there's nothing in this world that really ticks you off, and they've been through so much, and they know it's not worth it. It's really not worth it.
I want to add
Beautiful.
to that because I'm very much like you describe yourself. I'm always been on the go and running and always having a plan. And although I have many things, many things and goals in life, and we've always talked about that, But my goal is same as him, to learn how to enjoy the now, the process, because I came to I came to the realization that I wasn't doing that. So therefore, in idle times, I will generally feel like something's missing. I have to be doing something. So my goal is actually to learn how to enjoy this moment while I, of course, get inspired and then do everything that has to do with my business. And I have goals. And of course, I have so many things, but this one is bigger, like to enjoy the process, because that's what actually true success is, feeling that freedom of time, of relationships and love and purpose, and to enjoy it.
I love it. It's beautiful. And you guys are on the same page because you basically said the same thing with different words.
Yeah.
So,
What about you guys?
Well, I mean, I think pretty obvious is that this retreat that is your vision and your hard work, that you're putting into it, but it's our path because, I am a part of it. I'm one of the experts in this, journey, and I get to bring my expertise to whatever we create together. So, like they say, that if you want to be rich, help someone else get rich. If you want to be successful, help someone else get successful. And I always thought, well, of course I want my partner to be successful, So, but I've recently learned this in an even deeper way by working for a friend who I really, truly do want to see successful. And so the more and the harder I work for him, the more that business has already grown just in the time that I've been working there. So it's that same thing with us is I know the more that I pour into your success, the more that is raising both of us to the level that we want to be, which I feel for me really is building a community of people who are elevating and they're, I'm going to get into neuroscience and all that, but it's frequency, right? It's vibration. It's the entire planet, obviously right now is a little scattered and low energy. So the more that we can help empower people, right, to discover within themselves how to do the inner work, how to have powerful couple, relationship in a couple, and how to raise their own vibration through tools and things that, that we can teach. That's where I feel like we are building together.
Yeah.
That's very commendable that you guys focus on creating and supporting and providing those resources to you. It's not easy to become a power couple. You need retreats. You need these get through your daily struggles, as I mentioned earlier. So thank you guys so much. I think that's so awesome.
Thank you guys for being a part of it.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
that
honored.
Oh, I'm honored. I'm leaving this podcast feeling right now like I'm up here. Like I'm so honored to be a part of this.
He's ready to go straight to the retreat.
I
Like,
know,
let's go
right?
now.
You'll be at the retreat, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Look
I
forward to
think
meeting you.
I think that when we create these things, couples like you and I, couples like you guys, when we create these opportunities for other couples to receive and to grow, and to express, it's because of our own journey. I know when we first got together, even still to this day, we were seeking out opportunities like what we are now creating. They didn't exist, or at least not, they weren't readily available. We were having to search for them. Once in a while, we would find something. There would be some event, or there would be something that we could go to, and it would give us a little taste. And it's like, yeah, this is what we're seeking. We're seeking other couples who have the same values, they have the same energy. But how do we connect? How do we find more of what we want? And if it doesn't exist, then sometimes you got to create it. You got to be the one that brings it. And so, those are the couples I want to reach. I want to reach those couples who are like us. At some time, they've been seeking connection with other like-minded couples. They've been seeking couples who want to do more than go out and party. They want depth and value and real content in their lives, substance in their lives. So
Such a positive impact to the community and to society, right?
Absolutely.
Remember, those are two different aspects of life. Of partying is important. I'm not saying that, it's not good to party and whatnot, but it's also good to have great relationships and building, as I would say, a community where everybody stands together and we're just giving this positive energy and making sure everybody's successful in everything that they do, especially as a couple.
absolutely. That's how we continue to grow.
Mhm.
Well, I want to thank you guys for giving your time today, being a part of this conversation and sharing so openly with us and with the audience.
Yeah, really, thank you, because I didn't know where this was going.
You're welcome.
But
We hope.
the things that we were able to talk about today helped me.
Thank you. Then it's listen, manifestation, when you start talking about, and you made us go back and reminisce a little bit about our history, and we can talk for hours,
We like to talk.
So
Us too. Us too.
thank you so much. That means a lot. It's
Yeah.
helped you, and we hope that it helps other people, individuals, not only couples, right? People that might be seeking to be in a
Right.
relationship soon,
Oh man, we could do a whole episode. We could do a whole
Yeah.
episode just on, seeking a relationship and preparing. That'll be another one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you guys are also so inspiring. I'm honored. I'm really honored and excited to be part of this.
Thank you.
For those listening, any information that you may want on Roselyn's business is going to be in the show notes. All her links will be there. So if you want to reach out to her, kind of have more of this conversation that we've started today, you can find all of her information there. For the retreats that we're talking about, those links will also be in the show notes. This conversation here today is just the beginning. Don't feel like it ends here. Maybe this is the doorway for you to deepen your own growth, deepen your growth with your partner. And what's important is we can open the door, but you have to walk through it. So until next time.
Yep. All right.
Take care.
Well,
Thank you.